Hey everybody, Brian here from quantlabs.net. Just wanted to go over with you two trading opportunities that may have come about with this import duty of Canadian lumber into the States. When you look at the exchange, the currencies here of the Canadian, US against the Canadian, and US against the Mexican, what we have here is the volatility has somewhat increased with Mexico. Now, it hasn't impacted the Canadian dollar so much, but it has driven up the Mexican peso quite a bit. So there's a couple of ways to trade this. If you were to pair trade this through the futures currencies, or maybe even the options, or maybe do some sort of arbitrage on this regarding a short and a long. And that is one opportunity. It's a 5-day chart. But when you look at maybe the 1 day, because today is Wednesday, August 26th, but you can see here at around today, the volatility has just gone up, like as of today. So this is a great little currency to trade because of the volatility if you know how to trade it. Now, there may be some other events that has put the Canadian dollars a little more stable than the Mexican peso. So let's say if I looked at year to date might be good since the US election. Okay, let's see. So you can see here that the Mexican peso has strengthened. The Canadian dollar has somewhat stayed in this range. But as the peso has gotten a little stronger, you may have had some opportunity here. You know, especially when the NAFTA is being questioned, there may be some good volatility you could play off of the events of within the news. So it's just an opportunity you may want to consider as a pair trade, or longing the Mexican dollar, and maybe something bad will happen that'll impact Mexico, and that'll reverse that trade. But keep your eyes on. That's the whole idea of the automation. Okay, another one that is very useful is the SNP 500. So as we know, since the election, there's been a really good run-up on the S&P 500. But when you factor in as another opportunity here, now let me just say something about individual stock versus indices and ETFs specifically. There's always an ETF that will specialize in the S&P 500, as we all know. But there may be a ETF that will specialize in this one, the Shanghai Composite. Shanghai is an interesting one. Let's see, Shanghai Composite ETF. So that's what we want. That may be like a Vanguard or whatnot. Let's see what we have here in this ETF. So the idea here is if you looked at the trend of the Shanghai, let's say over the last month, it has weakened. 6 month, but it's strengthened. It has weakened. Okay. So what are some of the better ETFs to play here? DBX, X trackers. Let's see here. Maybe Investopedia's got a better way. So we've got some ETFs here. ASHR, which is nicely 51%. Who puts this puppy out? Now, there's a couple of things that we need to understand about ETFs versus individual stock. They're cheaper to trade, cheaper to own. And the thing is with them, with the ETFs generally, is you do get a healthy balance of diversity. Now, from what I've seen, if this was a state's, let's say an ETF like an iShare, let's check that out. Just make sure. S&P 500 ETF, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so let's say the Spider, or let's say I do like Vanguard, but let's just say, do we just say Spider? Let's get the mix of what is part of the Spider here. List of Spider trade funds. So this is, let's see what the mix is. So the mix is here. So here's what are we looking for? I haven't done this in a while. So you're going to get a cross reference of all these different sectors. So there's only two sectors that are performing better than the underperformers, but that's the idea of the shares. So that's one thing you need to be aware of ETFs, is that they're may not be the smartest to play, but do keep that in mind. But for now, let's just assume we just want to focus on the exchanges or the indices themselves. So going back to the Shanghai Composite, here's the, it's peaked a little bit, dropped back, well over 10%. Now, word is that this little guy's starting to bounce back. So if I look at a 1 day, it's been range bound, but this may come back depending upon the fundamentals of China manufacturing, the general economy of China. Now, I've been reading it. The market is starting to expand a bit in the real estate, so maybe there's some competition. But the interesting thing here is we know about arbitrage. Here's the general trend over the last few days. So that would be, let's say, 1 month. So it's been a little bit of a rise since April 21st. Now it's in range bound. So if I was to add that index, the Chinese, which is, this is again Yahoo, we are looking for, where's our symbol name? This one right here. In China, they use these weird numbers, but if I do a compare on this, oh, here we go. So you'll see here, this would be a really nice opportunity to pair trade, obviously. Now, if you were to watch the S&P versus the Shanghai, and let's say something to watch here is if the S&P 500 starts to weaken, this GSP, and this starts to strengthen, that might give an opportunity for a pair trade, because this one's strengthening, this one could weaken. And there's a number of which ways to go, again, depending upon the news. But I thought I'd just put this video together just to show you two potential opportunities here between the Canadian, the Mexico Peso, and then the Shanghai Composite versus the S&P 500, just to watch these two to see where it goes. Hope that'll help you out later.